Okay. So this is one of my favorite suttas, this story of Rahula and his dad. Um, Part of the reason I think is because um, when I was younger, there was slanderous talk. Uh, there was sort of an assumption that the Buddha abandoned his family,
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
right? And took a long time for me to find out that the story is quite different. And um, the idea that he abandoned his family is contradicted by a couple of things. One is um, that after his awakening, he went back to let the guys he had been with before, when he was almost dying, let them know he didn't die and that he, in fact, achieved what they were all trying to achieve. And once that was settled, he went home. That was the very next thing he did. He went back to his family and he let them know that their sacrifice was well done, that he had achieved what they had graciously, supported him in doing. And then they all moved in with him. His parents moved in with him, his wife moved in with him, his son moved in with him, his mother died in childbirth or shortly after, the Buddha's mother. And so one of the Buddha's, I think her sister, but I'm not certain anymore, nursed him because she had just had a baby. And she moved in with them, and she eventually became the first ordained woman, the woman who had nursed the Buddha. So that's pretty wonderful that I'm pretty clear that he and his family were on good terms. And so this story starts out that the Buddha was sitting quietly, and here's the next thing I really like. He started thinking, just in case someone thought the Buddha didn't think. This is a direct statement. No, the Buddha thought. And it says, a line of thinking arose in the Blessed One's awareness. And it was concern about Rahula, about his son. And he was thinking that, Rahula had developed quite nicely in his practice. He was a dedicated monk and doing quite well. And the Buddha said, it's time for me to bring him to the next level, right? So the language he says is the mental qualities that ripen in release have ripened in Rahula. What if I were to lead Rahula further to the ending of mental fermentations? So this is a pretty lovely piece of connection to something that we're doing, that we've been doing. Some of the language that appears in this sutta appears in the Anapanasati Sutta. And I'll get to that later, but it tickles me. So then the Blessed One, early in the morning, put on his robes, carrying his bowl and outer robe, went into Savatthi for alms. Having gone for alms in Savatthi after the meal, returning from his alms round, he said to the Venerable Rahula, fetch your sitting cloth, Rahula. We will go to the grove of the blind to spend the day. You know, I want to spend the day also with them. Oh, well, didn't happen. As you say, Lord, Rahula responded. Carrying his sitting cloth, he followed behind the Blessed One. Now, at the time, many thousands of devas were following behind the Blessed One, thinking, ooh, today the Blessed One will lead Rahula further to the ending of mental fermentations. So, all right, a boy and his father go on a picnic, followed by 1,000 miraculous beings. Ah, lovely. So then the Blessed One, having plunged into the grove of the blind, sat down on a seat made ready at the foot of a tree. And the Venerable Rahula, having bowed down to the Blessed One, sat to one side. And as he was sitting there, the Blessed One said to him, and this is the whole sutta basically, what the Blessed One said to him. And so I'm going to read a little bit and then I'm going to pause. Rahula, what do you think? Is the I constant or inconstant? So his use of the word I in this case, EYE, by the way, not the letter I, refers to the sense organ and the sense experience of sight. He's using the word I, but he really means the entire sense base. So he says, Rahula, is the I constant or inconstant? Inconstant, Lord, said Rahula. And is that which is inconstant easeful or stressful? Stressful. And is it fitting to regard what is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change as this is mine, this is myself, this is what I am? No, Lord, said Rahula. What do you think, Rahula? Are forms constant or inconstant? So the forms he's referring to here would be the objects that the eye sees. You know, trees, I mean, they're out in the woods, so trees, grass, the sky, the leaves. Are those forms constant or inconstant? Inconstant, said Rahula. And is that which is inconstant easeful or stressful? Stressful. And is it fitting to regard what is inconstant, stressful, subject to change as this is mine, this is myself, this is what I am? No, Lord. What do you think? Is consciousness at the I constant or inconstant? Inconstant. And is that which is inconstant easeful or stressful? Stressful. And is it fitting to regard that which is inconstant, stressful, subject to change, as this is mine, this is myself, this is what I am? No, Lord. What do you think? Is contact at the I constant or inconstant? Inconstant. And is that which is inconstant easeful or stressful? Stressful. And is it fitting to regard that which is inconstant, stressful, subject to change as this is mine, this is myself, this is what I am? No, Lord. What do you think, Rahula? Whatever there is that arises in dependence on contact at the eye as a mode of feeling, a mode of perception, a mode of fabrication, a mode of consciousness, is it constant or inconstant? Inconstant. And it is that which is inconstant, easeful or stressful? Stressful. And is it fitting to regard what is inconstant, stressful, subject to change as this is mine, this is myself, this is what I am? No, Lord. So I'm going to pause there and talk about the senses for a moment, because we're going to go from the eye to the ear to the nose to the tongue and so forth. So there is a definition in the Buddhist world uh, um, of something that is called a sense base. Rather than our thinking of the senses the way, we learned in school, the senses require multiple things to occur for the sense to be active, to the sense to be known. There has to be an eye, the physical eye. There has to be an object that is seen by the eye. That's the form. There has to be consciousness, knowing that sight is occurring. If you're not conscious, then the physicality occurs. So, for instance, the common example is if you're so absorbed reading a book that someone walks in the room and calls your name, and you're not conscious that your hearing consciousness is not active. You're so absorbed in reading the book that hearing consciousness is not active. And so even though the vibration of the voice vibrates the air, vibrates your eardrum, something goes up into your brain, you're not conscious of it. You don't know it occurred. And the person yells your name and you go, what? What? Oh, I didn't know you were calling me. Literally. I wasn't conscious. I didn't know you were calling. So we have the I, we have the object, we have consciousness. The Buddhist world leaves out the medium, which, you could include that if you want. I mean, the medium is photons bouncing off the object and hitting your eye, right? And then the Buddha brings up, oops, what does he bring up? I lost my place. Consciousness. Contact, right. So contact is the birth of the relationship that when the Buddha teaches there's no seeing, seer, and there's no seen, there's no one hearing, there's nothing being heard, it's because contact happens and a relationship is born. And the relationship then shapes consciousness. All of this is happening, and the Buddha is going through one after another after of all of these things, the sense organ, the object being sensed, the consciousness to know this is happening, the contact that creates the relationship. And then the last piece he brings up is all this is Bhikkhu Bodhi's word, concomitants. I love that word. I never get to use it. Um, which is to say, all the things that are associated with it. So when there is contact at the eye, feeling arises. When there is contact at the eye, when feeling arises, perception interprets that sight and that feeling. And then from there, there's a fabrication. Oh, it's a tree. A tree is our projection of what's there. I mean, something's there, but tree is our term. And the way that we think of tree is ours. It's not the trees, it's not the universes. It's a human construct. It's a fabrication. And then the mode of consciousness, which is um, I think actually you might as well call it a seed and go with Thich Nhat Hanh's description. So the eye makes contact, we're conscious of it. There's a relationship built, there's feeling, there's perception, there's fabrication, and then a choice arises in consciousness. Thich Nhat Hanh's choice of do you water the seed or do you leave it dormant? In other words, are you really going to get entangled with this experience of seeing? Are you going to elaborate it and make it into something beyond the simple making it into, I see a tree? There's plenty of fabrication right there. But, you know, so this is the Buddha breaking down one step at one piece, one factor at a time to Rahula and saying to him, Rahula, are any of these factors constant? Are any of these factors uh, subject to change? And the answer is they are all subject to change. They all change moment after moment. Our eyes flicker and the sight adjusts. We move our head slightly and the sight adjusts. You know. And then the Buddha says, um, can you relax and be at ease when something is inconstant? Or does the inconstant nature of our sense experience, does it lead to stress? And of course, Rahula answers stress. And then the Buddha says, if it's inconstant, if it causes stress, if it's subject to change, can it be you? Can it be yours? Can it be what you are? And Rahula says, no, it couldn't. How could something that is constantly changing be me? Because the concept of me has a quality of permanence. And if my ability to see, my experience of seeing, is in fact not mine, but is in fact dependent on uh, what is being seen, dependent on consciousness, dependent on contact and what relationship gets built through contact. I don't get to be in charge of that. I look outside my window, I see the pond. The relationship that gets born in that moment is unique and different from another time I look out and see the pond. I can't look out and make the pond be what it is, strictly dependent upon my wishes. The pond is in existence dependent on everything, really, but dependent certainly on much more than just my seeing it. The one thing that is dependent on the seeing is the contact experience. The pond does not get seen in the way I see it unless I see it. I'm in here too. So it's a way of saying this idea of it being my sight, that it's myself doing the seeing, and that the seeing is what I am, isn't necessary for us to actually be, oh, I could leave it that way, for us to actually be. We don't need a self-identity to be us. Now, the grass outside that's growing is itself. And it doesn't have to sit around and go, oh, I'm a tall stalk of grass. Oh, but I'm not as deep as green as that one. And I wonder what's going to happen. I know that the lawnmower comes every 2 weeks, and the top of me will get cut off. I mean, this is what we do. This is what we do. May it be so that none of the grass has to suffer in this way. But we do. And so the Buddha is addressing this. The Buddha is saying that through the lens of inconstancy, of impermanence, through the lens of change, we get a clearer picture of what this self is. That's why the Buddha never said, oh no, there is no self. Nor did he ever say there is a self. There is something that comes into being, but it's inconstant. And it's dependent on, on everything. It's not separate. This sense of me changes moment after moment. It's inconstant. And the sense of me changes dependent on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm tasting, what I'm smelling, what I'm feeling, the sensations in my body, the thoughts in my mind. And all of those are inconstant and subject to change. And as a result, they're stressful. And as a consequence, I'm stressed. So this is what the Buddha said about the eye. He says the exact same list of questions to Rahula. Is the ear constant or inconstant? Is the nose constant or inconstant? Is the body constant or inconstant? Is the intellect inconstant or constant? And is that which is inconstant easeful? No, it's stressful. And therefore it is fitting to regard what is inconstant, what is stressful, what is subject to change. Is it fitting to regard that they are mine, that this is me, that this is what I am? No, says Rahula, no. And the Buddha says, are ideas constant or inconstant? No, ideas are inconstant. And is that which is inconstant easeful or stressful? Stressful. And is it fitting to regard what is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change as this is mine, these are me, these are my thoughts, these thoughts are what I am? No. Is consciousness of the intellect constant or inconstant? It's inconstant. And is that which is inconstant easeful or stressful? Come on, Paige. Stressful. And is it fitting to regard what is inconstant, stressful, subject to change, as this is mine, this is myself, this is what I am? Is he really saying that consciousness of our thinking, of our intellect, isn't me? That's a hard one for everyone. Isn't that me? Isn't that like isn't there some core me that's like that part that's consciousness of thought? No, Lord. And then he goes on with contact of the intellect, the relationship between the cognizer and that which is cognized, the intellect and the act of intellection, the thinker and the thought. Isn't this mine? Isn't this myself? Isn't this what I am? I think, therefore I am. Dad, didn't Descartes say that? But no, it's not what I am. And the Buddha says, what do you think? Whatever there is that arises in dependence on contact at the intellect as a mode of feeling, a mode of perception, a mode of fabrication, or a mode of consciousness, is that constant or inconstant? Well, it's inconstant. And is that which is inconstant, easeful, or stressful? It's stressful. And is it fitting to regard that which is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change as this is mine? This is myself? This is what I am? No, it's not. Seeing thus, Rahula, the instructed disciple of the noble ones grows disenchanted with the eye, disenchanted with forms, disenchanted with consciousness at the eye, disenchanted with contact at the eye. And whatever there is that arises in dependence on contact at the eye as a mode of feeling, a mode of perception, a mode of fabrication, a mode of consciousness. With that too, you grow disenchanted. You, you grow disenchanted with the intellect, disenchanted with ideas, disenchanted with consciousness at the intellect, disenchanted with contact at the intellect. And whatever there is that arises dependent on contact at the intellect, feeling and perception and fabrication and consciousness, with that too you grow disenchanted. Disenchanted, you become dispassionate. And through dispassion, you are fully released. With full release, there is knowledge. Fully released, he discerns that birth is depleted, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. There is nothing further for this world. At this point, all the little beings that have been floating around, by now there's tens of thousands, are all smiling and applauding and bowing and nodding and going, "Oh, this is amazing." Gratified, the Venerable Rahula delighted in the Buddha's words. And while this explanation was given, Rahula's mind, through no clinging, was fully released from fermentations. And to those many thousands of devas, there arose the dustless, stainless Dharma eye. Whatever is subject to origination is all subject to succession. Standing ovation from the devas. So I wanted to read this. These are, this is from the Anapanasati Sutta. The 16 verses. These are the last 4 verses. You train yourself. I will breathe in, focusing on inconstancy. You train yourself. I will breathe out, focusing on inconstancy. You train yourself. I will breathe in, focusing on dispassion. You train yourself. I will breathe out, focusing on dispassion. You train yourself. I will breathe in, focusing on cessation. You train yourself. I will breathe out, focusing on cessation. You train yourself. I will breathe in, focusing on relinquishment. You train yourself. I will breathe out, focusing on relinquishment. Thus I have heard.